Very one warns you about wolves. Nobody warned me about Levi. Not the kind that howl at the moon. Not the kind that hunt in forests. Number. Levi was different. A wolf in human skin. And somehow, he smelled like trouble, authority, and something that made my chest catch every single time I looked at him. We'd been training together for years, sparring, drills, late-night runs, beers after long pack meetings. But tonight, everything was different. I was in the middle of a combo he'd thrown at me 100 times before. I saw it coming, adjusted, and still. He landed it just hard enough to make me stagger back a step, chest heaving, muscles trembling, pulse thrumming in my ears. "Careful," he muttered, voice low, edged with something I couldn't name. "Getting sloppy." I laughed, forcing it casual, though the heat rising in my chest betrayed me. His presence always did that, made me hyper-aware of every curve, every shadow, every line of muscle. His shadow fell across mine as he moved, and suddenly the air felt too thick, too close, too full of electricity I couldn't escape. Or maybe I'm just distracted, I teased, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hands were shaking ever so slightly. Couldn't focus with a certain alpha breathing down my neck. His green eyes narrowed, predatory, calculating, testing. I felt the weight of him, and knew he saw more than I wanted him to. "For a beta," he said, low, deliberate. "You're getting bold." For a beta? If only he knew. Because beneath the sweat, the bravado, the carefully practiced nonchalance, I was hiding something. Something he'd sworn he'd never want. I was an Omega. And Levi. Levi Weston, alpha, friend, sparring partner, the man who had slowly crept into every corner of my thoughts over the last 2 years. He hated Omegas. I swallowed, feeling the bond pulse faintly between us. A quiet pull I couldn't name, a hunger I wasn't supposed to admit. My pulse spiked, nerves alive with tension. And in that instant, I realized. I wasn't just lying to protect myself anymore. I was lying to the alpha, who had already started claiming me in ways he didn't even know yet. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the faint scar above his brow, the way his jaw flexed as he breathed. Close enough that I could smell him, metallic, sharp, dangerous, like sunlight through steel. I wanted to step back. I wanted to melt. I wanted to tell him everything and hide it forever at the same time. "Careful, Sean," he murmured, voice low, intimate, almost teasing. Push me too far, and I might actually enjoy this. I froze. Heat flared in my chest, and I realized, with a jolt that made my knees weak, that he wasn't just seeing me. He was testing me, pulling at something I wasn't supposed to let him touch. And I didn't move away. Because for all my fear, all my lies, all the reasons I should have kept my distance, I knew one terrifying, glorious truth. Levi Weston had already claimed me, and I was already his. Flashback. You want to know how I ended up here, lying to the only man I've ever loved? All right, let me rewind. We met 2 years ago, before I transferred into his pack. It wasn't some magical moment, not like the stories where eyes lock and sparks fly. No, it was simpler, messier. I'd just moved to the city, new job, new place, new everything. And one night, my neighbor dragged me to this pack gathering, said it would help me network. I was halfway through planning my escape when I saw him. Levi Weston, tall, broad-shouldered, black hair cut just messy enough to look like he didn't care, tattoos curling down his back when his shirt slipped at the collar. He had that alpha presence, the kind that makes everyone else shift just a little to give him space. I remember thinking, great, another arrogant alpha who thinks the world owes him. Then he caught some drunk guy cornering me, pressing too close. And before I could even blink, Levi was there, hand clamped on the guy's shoulder, voice low and sharp as a knife. "Back off." The guy scattered, and Levi just looked at me. Not like prey, not like property, just like a person. That was the first time I thought maybe I'd misjudged him. We started talking that night, and talking turned into sparring in the training grounds. Sparring turned into grabbing beers. Beers turned into late-night walks, where he'd tell me things he didn't tell anyone. How he hated politics, how he envied people who could just live without everyone expecting them to lead. And me? I told him jokes, stupid stories from my old pack. Nothing too personal. Never the truth. Because somewhere along the way, I realized I was falling. Hard. Every time he laughed or looked at me like I wasn't just another face in the crowd, it chipped away at the walls I'd built, and God, it was torture. Wanting someone you knew you could never have. Because then I learned. We were out one night, sitting on the hood of his truck, a little buzzed, watching the stars. Out of nowhere, he started talking about his father. How the man had been powerful, respected, until his Omega mate dragged him down. Manipulative, needy, always playing the fragile card until the pack stopped respecting him. Levi's jaw tightened as he said it. Omegas are chains. Weak. They break alphas down and make them soft. I'll never let one anywhere near me. He said it like a vow, like a promise carved into stone. I just sat there, staring at my hands, trying not to let my chest cave in, because I was an Omega, and I was already his. But he only saw me as his closest friend, the one he trained with, drank with, and trusted, his brother in arms. And me? I smiled, nodded, pretended I agreed, then went home and lay awake, wishing I could be anything but what I was, because falling for Levi Weston was the easiest thing I've ever done. And hiding it? That was the hardest. Flashback ends. A few days later. You ever have one of those moments where the world stops? Like everyone else is still talking, moving, living their lives, but for you, it's just silence? That was me, the night it happened. We'd been sparring, same as always. My arms ached, sweat slicking my skin, but I wasn't about to quit. Not when Levi Weston was watching. Not when every fiber of me burned with the need to prove I could keep up with him. He lunged. I dodged. His hand grazed mine. Just a brush of skin, barely a touch, and suddenly it was like fire shot through my veins. I froze. He froze. Our eyes locked, and I swear, it felt like gravity itself shifted. There was no sound, no air, just him. His green eyes widening, his chest rising and falling too fast, like he couldn't breathe either. That's when I knew. Mate bond. The one thing Omegas grow up dreaming of, fearing, praying for. The one thing I thought I'd never have. Because how could fate be so cruel as to tie me to an alpha who despised people like me? Levi staggered back a step, shaking his head like he could deny it. No. His voice cracked, raw, disbelieving. Not you. And God help me, a part of me still wanted to reach out, to say, yes, me, always me. But instead, I stood there, trembling, pretending I didn't know what just happened, pretending my heart wasn't clawing its way out of my chest. He turned, fists clenched so tight I could see the veins in his forearms, muttering to himself, "This isn't possible. I can't." I should have said something. Anything. But all I could think was, fate just ruined my life. Levi's head whipped toward me. I'll never forget that look, his nostrils flaring, his eyes burning like wildfire. Shock, fury, betrayal. You, he spat. His voice was low, trembling with rage. You've been lying to me. My mouth went dry. Levi, He cut me off, stepping closer, towering over me like the ground itself wanted me gone. Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Do you think I don't know what this is? The bond! This... He jabbed a finger between us, his hand shaking. You tricked me! I didn't mean... I choked on the words, because how could I explain? How could I tell him that hiding was survival? That Omegas don't get to just be in a world where alphas like him spit on our existence? But he wasn't listening. His face twisted, jaw tight with old scars I couldn't see but felt in every word. "I swore I'd never be chained like my father," he snarled. "I won't let an Omega drag me down." Not now, not ever. And just like that, the world tilted off its axis. The mate bond burned between us, undeniable, inescapable. And yet he looked at me like I was poison. And maybe worse than his anger was the crack in his voice, the pain under it. Like a part of him hated me for being exactly what he needed. I wanted to scream, to beg, to tell him I never wanted to lie, never wanted to hurt him. But all I could do was stand there, shaking, trying to decide whether to fight for him or finally let him go. A week later, if you think things were bad before, welcome to hell. Word spreads fast in a pack, faster than fire in dry grass. And when they found out, well, let's just say I had to learn what it felt like to be prey in plain sight. It started small. A glance too long from a tall, broad-shouldered alpha during training. A friendly comment that lingered too close to my shoulder. Nothing I could call out without looking paranoid. Then it escalated. One night, I was finishing up alone in the training hall. The air smelled like sweat and iron, my palms stinging from punching the bag. And then, that smirk. "Nice work tonight," he said, leaning against the doorway. Not. Many could keep up with Levi's little pet project. Your impressive pet project. I stiffened. Not exactly subtle. And the thing is, they all said the same. Every one of them knew Levi hadn't claimed me yet. That made me desirable, dangerous, a prize. Levi saw it too. From across the yard, the way his eyes narrowed, the jaw twitching, the hands curling into fists. I could practically feel his anger radiating across the clearing, but he didn't move, didn't intervene, didn't say a word. And every alpha who smiled at me, every alpha who whispered and licked their lips, made my chest ache with longing and fear, because I wanted him, and watching others reach for me. I could feel myself slipping further from his hands. I wanted to tell him, "I'm yours. Don't let anyone else touch me." But even as I thought it, I knew he wouldn't. Not yet. Not until he faced the same fear he always ran from: weakness, vulnerability, love. A few weeks later, the tension snapped one night like a rope stretched too far. I was alone in the training hall, sweat dripping down my back, hitting the bag until my knuckles bled, trying to pound the ache out of my chest, trying to forget him, trying to forget that he hated half of what I was and yet couldn't resist pulling toward me anyway. Then the door slammed open. Levi, towering, furious, his green eyes burning through me, hands on my shoulders, shaking me like he could shake the truth out of me. "Stop letting them near you," he growled. Voice low, trembling, nearly breaking. "They're not worthy of you." I laughed, bitter, sharp, because what else could I do? "And you are," I spat, swinging my head up to meet his glare. "You won't claim me. You won't even admit what this is. So what am I supposed to do, Levi? Sit here, waiting for you to decide I'm a mistake?" For a second, I thought he'd hit me, thought he'd storm out, thought this was the end. Then his hand shook, just slightly, on my wrist. I felt it. The bond pulsing between us, fierce, undeniable. "I won't be weak," he whispered, voice tight, trembling with pride, with fear, with every lesson his father ever taught him. "I won't let an Omega ruin me." And in that moment, I realized the truth. He wasn't trying to push me away because he didn't want me. He was trying to protect himself from me, from the bond, from everything he'd been taught to fear. And my chest? It ached. It ached knowing that the man I loved more than life itself was standing right in front of me, desperate, terrified, and yet denying the very thing that tied us together. Because the bond wanted us. The world wanted to tear us apart. And Levi had to decide whether he was strong enough to fight for love or strong enough to lose it forever. 2 weeks later. I never thought I'd be this close to death. And yet, here I was, heart hammering like a drum, lungs screaming for air, and Levi Weston standing between me and it all. We were deep in the forest, hunting rogue wolves that had been threatening the outskirts of the pack's territory. Moonlight cut through the trees, turning everything silver and dark, like a dream twisted into something dangerous. My boots crunched against the frost-covered leaves, my hands shaking slightly around my spear, trying not to show Levi how terrified I was. Then I saw him. One of the rogues, bigger than any alpha I'd ever sparred with, teeth bared, claws gleaming. He lunged at me faster than my reflexes could handle. My scream tore out before I could stop it. And Levi? He was everywhere at once. I don't know how, but he reached me, grabbed me, spinning me behind him with one motion so smooth it should have been impossible. His hands pressed against my waist, solid, hot, grounding me as if I might shatter if he let go. The world narrowed. My chest slammed against his back, and I felt it, the bond. Fire crawling up my spine, pulling at me, dragging me into him, making me dizzy, making my blood roar. He could feel it too. I knew it. His scent hit me, sharp, intoxicating, something that made my stomach twist with need. He turned toward the rogue, his jaw tight, eyes flashing green with a fire I'd never seen. And then, right in front of everyone, the pack, the rogue, the night itself, he growled my name, low, possessive, like the world could try to take me and he would tear it apart to stop it. You're mine. Stay the hell behind me, he snarled. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even process the words, the pull, the heat between us. The rogue retreated, senses telling it couldn't win. Levi didn't let go. Not fully. His hands on me, tight, almost desperate. And then he stepped back, just enough for me to see the fury burning in his eyes. Damn it, he muttered, barely above a whisper, teeth clenched. I can't believe But I didn't care. About his fury, I only cared that, for the first time, the bond wasn't just a secret, not just a pull. I felt him claim me, raw and undeniable, and I knew there was no going back. After that night, nothing was the same. Levi didn't touch me. Not really. Not yet. But his presence was everywhere. In training, in the mess hall, in the way his scent clung to the air around me, the way his green eyes followed me when I thought he wasn't looking. We were in the training hall one night, alone. Moonlight spilled across the floorboards, casting shadows over my arms, my chest, the sweat still cooling from the day. My heart was pounding from the drills, but also from him. Always him. He stepped closer. His shadow fell across me. Having you. It's dangerous, he muttered, voice low, trembling with something I didn't recognize at first. You. It makes me weak, soft, vulnerable. Like my father, I flinched because I knew what he meant. All those stories he'd told me about his father's Omega mate, the manipulation, the dependence, the way she'd wrapped him in chains disguised as love. Yeah, that haunted him. That scared him. I swallowed hard. Levi, that's not weakness. That's not you. That's connection. That's love. He shook his head, like he could shake the bond off. No, I've trained my whole life to be untouchable, to be strong. And now, he swallowed, hand brushing over my shoulder, trembling slightly. Now I feel like I could break just by letting you near. I stepped closer, letting my hand brush against his arm, feeling his tension, his heat, the bond roaring between us. You're stronger than that. Stronger than your father's mistakes, stronger than your fear, I whispered. He exhaled sharply, almost shaking, and I saw him. The alpha, the man everyone feared, standing there afraid of love, afraid of me, afraid of the bond that refused to let us be apart. And I realized then that Levi Weston wasn't fighting me. He was fighting the only thing in the world that could make him truly alive. A few days later, I thought I had seen fear before, but nothing could have prepared me for the way it hit me that night. I was in the lodge's training hall, Just me and the echo of my own heartbeat, wiping sweat from my brow after a long session with the bag. The air smelled like iron and pine polish, and the moonlight through the windows painted everything silver. I thought I could catch a moment to breathe, to calm the storm of feelings twisting my chest. Then I sensed him, the rival alpha. Tall, predatory, smirking like the world was his, and I was already his property. I froze, stomach dropping. The smirk on his face was smug, confident, terrifying. He circled me slowly, as if he owned the air around me. "Levi doesn't deserve you," he said, voice smooth, each word deliberate. "A weak alpha who won't claim his mate? That's a mistake. I won't make it. You'll come with me." I stiffened, heat rising in my chest, not from anger, from fear. And just like that, I realized. Levi wasn't here. But then, he was. Levi appeared like a shadow in the doorway. Every step forward was heavy with intent, power radiating off him in waves. His green eyes blazed like emerald fire, and I could hear the low growl in his throat, deep and dangerous. His fists clenched so tight the knuckles were white. "Get away from him," he said, voice like steel, low and lethal. The rival chuckled, stepping closer. "Or what? You're gonna let him choose? He's mine if you can't claim him." Levi's hand shot out, gripping my wrist, pulling me close. His forehead pressed against mine. His scent, raw, magnetic, washed over me, making the room spin. "I don't care what you think. He's mine, only mine. I don't need pride. I don't need fear. I don't need anything. He's mine." The bond pulsed between us, fierce and taut, stretching across every nerve. I could feel it vibrating through my chest, my stomach, my soul. And the fear in the rival's eyes told me it wasn't just instinct. I was claimed. Levi didn't let go. Not until I whispered, trembling, "Don't ever let go." And even after the threat passed, even after the adrenaline faded, I realized something terrifyingly beautiful. This alpha, this man who had once sworn to hate my kind, would fight the world for me. Not for pride, not for fear, but for love. Later, when the lodge was quiet, and the world felt like it had shrunk down to just us, Levi finally let himself drop the walls. He stood in the moonlight, chest rising and falling, hands trembling slightly as they cupped my face. His green eyes, sharp, piercing, burning, searched mine as if memorizing every detail. His lips parted, voice low and ragged. I was wrong," he admitted, voice breaking. I thought Omegas made me weak. I thought I'd be like my father. But you make me strong. Stronger than I've ever been. Stronger than anyone. And whole. Complete. Not broken." I laughed, a choked, incredulous sound. "All this time, you hated what I am." "I hated the idea," he whispered, fingers brushing against my jaw. "Not you. Never you. You're different. You're me. Stubborn, relentless, unshakable. And I'm done pretending I can fight this. I want you. All of you. Always." The bond pulsed between us, a living thing, demanding and consuming, pulling us together in a way I could no longer resist. My heart felt like it might burst. My knees felt weak. My hands trembled as I reached up to touch his face, tracing every line, every shadow, every scar. And then, he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't hesitant. It was fire and claiming, desperate and fierce. It was every unspoken word, every night of longing, every heartbeat we'd spent apart. It was proof. And in that moment, I realized something that made tears blur my vision. Levi Weston, the alpha who swore he'd never take an Omega mate, had finally chosen me. Not for pride, not for fear, not for anything but love. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe. Truly, utterly, impossibly safe. A few days later, the full moon hung heavy in the sky, washing the clearing in silver light. The pack had gathered, forming a wide circle around us, whispers and curious glances filling the night air. My stomach was doing cartwheels, and I had to remind myself to breathe. Levi stepped forward, and the air around him seemed to shift. Strong, commanding, dangerous, but soft somehow when it came to me. My pulse hit a different rhythm when his green eyes found mine. Fierce, steady, tender. "Sean," he called, voice carrying across the clearing, leaving no doubt, no room for misunderstanding. "I've spent my life believing strength meant never needing anyone. That vulnerability was a weakness. I've let fear and pride dictate everything I thought I knew." My throat tightened, and the bond pulsed in my chest. Urgent, undeniable. I could feel every heartbeat, every desire, every unspoken truth between us. "But no more," he continued, stepping closer until the heat of him wrapped around me like a second skin. "Strength isn't denying what you want. Strength is protecting it, fighting for it, standing beside it. Sean, you are my equal, my partner, my mate. I claim you openly. Here and now, I couldn't stop the laugh that bubbled out, half disbelief, half joy, because the relief, the love, the utter happiness I felt was overwhelming." He pulled me into his arms, and I could feel the solid power of him, the warmth, the scent that made my head spin. The pack didn't gasp or murmur. Instead, there was a quiet nodding, approving glances. Older alphas stepped forward, eyes soft, acknowledging us, the strength and balance we had together. No judgment, just recognition. Levi pressed his forehead to mine, voice low, rough with emotion. "You're mine," he murmured, almost to himself. "And anyone who thinks otherwise, they'll have to deal with it." I grinned, hiding my tears, wrapping my arms around his neck. "Good luck to them," I whispered. "You're not losing me." And in that moment, under the silver moonlight, I realized he wasn't claiming me out of fear or pride or obligation. He was choosing me. And I was choosing him too. Every day. Forever. A few months later, life had settled into a rhythm that felt like magic, like home. The pack had accepted our dynamic fully. They saw the balance, the fire, and the way we strengthened each other. And for the first time, being an Omega didn't feel like a liability. It felt like me. Levi and I were sprawled across the couch in our cabin, sunlight spilling through the windows, painting the room gold. My head rested on his broad chest, arms curled around him, and I could feel every muscle under my fingers, warm, alive, steady. Coffee steamed on the small table in front of us, filling the cabin with cinnamon and vanilla. "You know," I said, voice soft, teasing, nudging his shoulder, "for someone who used to call Omegas weak." I paused for dramatic effect, brushing a stray lock of black hair from his forehead. "You sure picked a powerful one." He groaned, rolling his eyes, but the corner of his mouth lifted into that rare, tender smile I adored. "Then I met you," he said, thumb brushing my cheek, gentle, intimate. "And I realized, weak doesn't exist when it comes to you." I laughed, warm, full of joy. "Guess that makes us unstoppable, huh?" He kissed the top of my head, holding me tighter. "Unstoppable," he agreed, "and officially inseparable." Pack and all. We stayed there, curled together in the sunlight, hands entwined, hearts synced, talking about everything and nothing. He teased me about my obsession with cinnamon coffee, and I teased him about his obsession with training too much. And it was perfect. Domestic. Safe. Electric. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, thinking about how far we'd come. The pack, the battles, the lies, the fear, all of it led to this. Because Levi Weston, my alpha, my mate, had finally learned that real strength wasn't about denying love. It was about embracing it. And I finally knew what it felt like to be fully, completely, irrevocably home. The end. Would you fight for love, even if it meant breaking all your rules? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.